And here's a look at the ferry ride over. This is the Port Imperial, I believe it was called. And the ferry is $9 each way. I recommend it one time. I don't know about multiple times after that because it's $9. But yeah, it's $9. And I think it was worth it one time. Here's a look at the Intrepid, which is about 850 feet long. Pretty big ship. Modern carriers are quite a bit bigger, however. So definitely a lot of fun. We'll take a look at the other side. I guess this would be left, so this would be the port side of the Intrepid. There's this awesome Lego set here. So the Intrepid was a World War II carrier. I think it was originally built in 1941 and saw a lot of action in the Pacific Theater. It survived a torpedo hit and several kamikaze strikes. And it actually was in service up until Vietnam. So the aircraft carrier, you can imagine, is a lot more roomy than the sub was. But it's really fascinating. It's like a floating building where they have everything that you would need. Now this is a World War II carrier. It was conventionally powered. It had a steam boiler, but I think it had a range of 20,000 nautical miles or something like that. Also used to recover a couple of astronauts after their missions. Here's the hangar deck, and they have some historical helicopters and planes here. Here's a look at some missiles. I thought these were pretty cool. And the most important area of the ship is, of course, I believe it's the mess, right? And as we know from, every Navy movie, you got to watch those cooks, man. You got to watch for them. Whether it's Steven Seagal and they're the best trained guy, or they're a spy. But here's a look at the Concorde, the supersonic passenger plane. We'll take a look at the flight deck. There's a look at the A12. That's not a Blackbird. It's not an SR-71. That's an A12. It's a single seat. Here's the F-16. Take a closer look at the A12. Like this Cobra helicopter here. And here's a Soviet MiG. First time I'd seen one of those. So the Intrepid, they also have the Enterprise space shuttle. This thing was really big in person. Generally speaking, everything I saw on my trip was smaller in person, but this thing was a lot larger. Now the Enterprise was basically it wasn't a full space shuttle. They used it to test the aeronautics, the gliding aeronautics. So it wasn't capable of going to orbit and never went into orbit. They would release it from a plane and then study how it glided and landed. That was great to see. Here's a look at, I guess they call this an island, or the superstructure, where all the command areas were of the carrier. Really enjoyed getting up in here and taking a look at all the various areas. Main thing I got from here is there's actually two bridges. There's the bridge and there's a flag bridge. The bridge, the ship's captain uses that to control the ship. The flag bridge is where the admiral controls the whole carrier group from. So that was interesting. Also at the Intrepid Museum, you have the Growler. Here's a look at the Growler exhibit. It goes over nuclear history, the history of the Growler, and a little bit of history of nuclear missiles. And it has a thing about nuclear deterrence or what have you. Here's a look at the Growler. It's about 300 feet long, and you saw the Regulus missile on top of it. There's the schematic for the Growler. Or we'll take a look through the Growler here. I got to tell you, being in a van, I really didn't think it was all that compact. Getting through some of the hatches, it's about 4 feet. You got to cram through 4 feet. But otherwise, again, I'm biased because I lived in a van for a while. I actually didn't think it was all that cramped. I thought it was okay. But being a big fan of, The Hunt for Red October and Das Boot and all those sub movies, getting to actually go into a submarine was just a really special experience. I definitely recommend giving this a look. Here's a look at the periscope. So the Growler is about 300, so it's a little bit over 300 feet long. I think it's got a displacement of less than 3,000 tons. I believe a high class sub, or modern day subs, are over they're almost double the length, 560 feet, something like that, and their displacement is much larger, and obviously they carry a lot more missiles. Look at all these gauges here, that's amazing. And here's a look at the torpedo room. We'll take a look at the Hell's Kitchen area of Midtown Manhattan here. And there was some sort of disturbance down there. I don't mean to make light of it, but for a second there I thought, oh, are we going to see Daredevil or Spider-Man? So following the Intrepid Museum, it was kind of late in the day, so I just decided to kind of wander the streets a little bit, get a feel for the city. Here's a look at Grand Central Terminal. I didn't go in this day, I did another day. Radio City Music Hall. It was just fun to kind of wander the streets and get a feel for the area. Coming from a smaller city, it's kind of like going to a football game every day. Here's Rockefeller Plaza, which, very nice, don't get me wrong, but it is a lot smaller in person. And this whole thing about pedestrian flow zones, I would gain an appreciation for plazas and squares and parks. Here's a look at Trump Tower. Yeah, I stopped by Trump Tower. A lot of hard feelings about the man. The lobby of the Trump Tower is spotless. It was immaculately clean. I was really impressed with it. I saw a billboard and I thought it was for a drink, but it's talking about Manhattanhenge. But it just so happened I was there when they had Manhattanhenge, and that's when the sun sets in perfect alignment with the city streets. And it was a great thing to see. I should have found a pedestrian bridge. I forget what street that's on, but you got a great view of the sunset, and I was really lucky to be there during that time. I think it happens twice a year. So from there, it's getting late. I figured I had to stop by Times Square. Actually a pretty big area, a ton of people there, almost being like in a mosh pit or something. I've seen it on TV so many times, and be able to be there and experience was, it was pretty fun. And then after seeing this, I headed back to the van and went to Walmart. Here's the ferry ride back. I think it was worth the $9. You just get a great view of the skyline here. And when I got back across the Hudson, I set up my camera and got my telephoto lens out and took a couple shots of the Empire State Building.